Okay, time for the breakdown. At the beginning of the month, President Trump, he signed an executive order, and it was titled this: Ending Taxpayer Subsidization of Biased Media. It's directed at NPR and PBS. The president didn't mince words in the EO either. He said they are biased media. And I think most of you would agree with that. And he wants taxpayer dollars to stop going to these outlets. In the EO, it states this: at the very least, Americans have the right to expect that if their tax dollars fund public broadcasting at all, they fund only fair, accurate, unbiased, and nonpartisan news coverage. Seems pretty common sense, right? Well, yesterday we told you NPR, it filed a lawsuit against President Trump in order to save the money that is going to them. And what I want to highlight, as I did a little bit yesterday, the article penned by Yuri Berliner last year. He is a former senior editor at NPR. He worked there for 25 years. And if you want to know what is really going on behind the scenes at NPR, why the president wants to cut their federal funding, all you have to do is read his article. NPR, according to Berliner, has become what you all expected. And what I want to do now is go through some of it again today, now that they have filed suit. When it comes to viewpoints, I'll start with this. This is what he wrote, everybody. Concerned by the lack of viewpoint diversity, I looked at voter registration for our newsroom. In D.C., where NPR is headquartered, and many of us live, I found 87% registered Democrats working in editorial positions and 0 Republicans. None. 0 Republicans in editorial positions. Seems odd for a newsroom that is supposed to be down the middle, right? He also talked about the coverage of Russia collusion and Hunter Biden's laptop. He wrote this: persistent rumors that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia over the election became the catnip that drove reporting. At NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. But when the Mueller report found no credible evidence of collusion, NPR's coverage was notably sparse. Russiagate quietly faded from our programming. When it came to the laptop, he wrote this: with the election only weeks away, NPR turned a blind eye. Here's how NPR's managing editor for news at the time explained the thinking, quote, "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions." We know the laptop was very real. He also wrote when it came to management, they basically turned a blind eye when it came to the origins of COVID, that they dismissed any thought that it maybe leaked out of a lab. And then all the DEI stuff had started coming in also around 2020 inside NPR. He wrote, race and identity became paramount in nearly every aspect of the workplace. Journalists were required to ask everyone we interviewed to get their race, gender, and ethnicity, and had to enter it into a centralized tracking system. We were given unconscious bias training sessions. He also says their language was monitored to fit that narrative, became so woke in the newsroom that this, in a document called NPR Transgender Coverage Guidance, disseminated by news management, we were asked to avoid the term biological sex. Lastly, I want to point out again the lack of Republicans in the office. Berliner wrote that he tried to raise awareness about this in the office, but it fell on deaf ears. He even tried to set up a meeting with their CEO about it multiple times, but on the day of the meeting, he was told his boss, the CEO of NPR, was sick, couldn't attend it, never happened. Berliner was initially suspended for 5 days for writing that piece. Eventually, he resigned, basically cost him his job after 25 years. Like I said, I think we all expected something like this. But now that NPR is suing President Trump, I thought it was a good time to air this one out again, right? NPR has turned into nothing more than a one-sided leftist propaganda outlet with no one to represent the right side of things inside of that building. And people have to know this. You got to know your tax dollars are being sent to fund it. So do you think that is fair? I do not. Joining me now,